has just been really calling to me. And that's kind of what we're talking about here today is that wild heart and being able to listen to it. And I would suggest if anybody, oh, it's still letting some people in here. I would suggest that anyone, you might want to get a journal and a pen, just because we're going to be doing some, reflective work, and you might want to take notes. And we're actually going to be doing a little meditation journey at the end. So it's really good to just kind of, document those things and your experiences. But I just wanted to really welcome everyone here. And, just to kind of give you some context and background about myself. A lot of you may know me, but there may be some new faces in here as well. But I've always been a deep nature lover ever since I was a child. I was just in the trees, getting dirty, and really connecting to nature and the earth. That's all I ever wanted to do and be, was just be outside and be free and, roaming around doing kids things and stomping in puddles and really connecting to the animal world. I have such a deep reverence for the animals. They have been one of my greatest teachers and allies growing up in life, and talking to the trees and if you remember back to, your own childhood, and just kind of before, I guess society has, kind of worked a lot of that out of us. I mean, I remember having those deep connections. And then, once it was like getting into school and really starting to get into my teenage years, you could start to feel that distancing and that pulling away. And that was kind of impactful at the same time for me, because I would still always want to desire that connection, because I feel the best when I'm outside. I don't know about you, but when I can feel the elements around me and just being able to see vast space, even, it's one of the most cleansing things that you can experience. And that's what the wild heart is. It's going into that place of like this deep wild yearning and being able to connect to those elements on, in the external world and in the internal world. But my journey didn't really start until 2005, when I began training with the way of the Apache Scout. And that was the earth protector, the healer, the warrior. This was learning the ways of the indigenous people and earth skills. It was making fire by friction, rubbing sticks together. It was collecting items from the earth. And you were in such reverence and appreciation for these life giving resources. It was, we were doing basket making and bow making and learning the plants and learning really the wisdom of the earth, and that these skills were this doorway to the earth. And, when you really start to work that wild comes back to you. And, you don't necessarily have to be working in those elements in order to connect to that, but it really is a facilitator. And, it's like we move through this experience where, it's almost like we have to tag things as sacred, and it's like in my eyes, and I know for a lot of you and maybe even our ancestors, everything was sacred. The day-to-day tasks of living were, they were life-giving. And sometimes, it meant life or death, survival. So people were so reverent with what it is that, sorry, just letting some more people in here. They were, really connecting to that life force piece. So there was this deep reverence with everything that they did. Everything had meaning and symbology in the process of making what it was that they were utilizing with their skills in everyday life. And so there's that disconnect that we have now. And it kind of plays a part in that disconnect with the wild heart. So, to live with that nature, connecting to your true nature, to have deep love, appreciation, and sacredness for those life giving resources, your community, and that wild nature that makes you authentically you. It's like that wildness that returns you back to your source, to God, creator. When you hear spirit calling, it's a place of listening. It's a place of taking action, and maybe even inspiring other people and creating impact, when we can really truly move into that place of the heart. So, as I was kind of immersed in nature through the teachings of grandfather Stalking Wolf and Tom Brown Jr., one of the greatest mentors I've ever known. This was an immersion. I interned at the school, and I was living primarily outdoors for about 4 years. And I still train, and I'm still very connected to the school today. Some of you in this group are actually here from the school, and I'm so blessed that you're here, holding that space here. 16 years later, from kind of entering into that doorway and opening of, teachings of nature and going back to our roots. I periodically take kind of wandering sabbaticals, going on nomadic adventures, local and cross country. And, I kind of look at them as like modernized versions of a wandering quest. And, I have Irene in here. We just recently, just last year in October, went out on a wandering quest to New Mexico. We did a cross country trip, and it was just absolutely incredible. So it's things like this that kind of nurture the experience of moving collectively towards the wilds again. And I mention the wilds because it is just an incredible teacher, one of the greatest teachers that will reflect back to you in a very conscious way. It's like you step into the temple of creation, and you are just amongst living beings that, have inhabited this earth and have pretty much seen everything that this earth has experienced in the process of it. So, it's a place where you can really learn about yourself, and truly, especially if you are connecting to the old indigenous skills and survival skills, that's a real understatement to really allow it to work through you and to learn about yourself, your own nature, how you respond to, you know, how you respond to the elements, your own self-reliance, to be able to, step outside and be able to really connect to that element of how we used to live, our ancestors used to live. So you learn very quickly about yourself when you're exposed to those things. So, it is a place to go wild, and it's a place to open your heart completely to the essence of that, to allow that pure state of connection to reflect itself back to you. My mentor, Tom Brown, often would say, we are aliens to our own planet. It's like, how many of us, small percentage of us, maybe less than 10% here, like how many of us feel comfortable just walking out into the woods and being able to survive? Like, how many indigenous plants do we actually know in our backyard? It's kind of, it's very rare, and it's great if you do know those things, but it's no wonder why the consciousness of this planet is beckoning and calling for our connection. And if you're listening to that, if you have that awareness or inclination within you, which you all do, it's like maybe your heart is longing for that, and you just don't even know it. And we, it's like when we really connect to that wild heart, it's this primal, instinctual essence. It's the breaker of monotony. On some unconscious level, you may feel that call. And a lot of times we may even see these side effects as, when these things are not fulfilled, when these impulses are not nurtured. I mean, if you look at, young children on their phones, even adults that are, playing games and they're on their phones constantly, these things can look like boredom, depression, anxiety, complacency, overwhelm, maladjustment, maybe not even feeling like they belong to anything. And, there are these pieces that are just kind of missing because we're not nurturing the aspects of those things, of the wild heart, of just being able to go outside and just feel the air on your skin. So, for the most part, we are such creatures of habit. We're creatures of, we like routines, and unfortunately, they cause really well-worn ruts. And, there's a blueprint to our very core of survival that longs for its roots. And when we can really connect to that, the wind, the air, the openness, the expansiveness of just an endless ceiling, the sky is the limit. And when we connect to that, there's this deep blueprint of freedom, deep connection, love, and compassion. But there's also really this other place of, feeling safe in the world. It's connecting to that Mother Earth energy, that nurturing, loving energy. I mean, I don't know if you've ever just laid down in a bed of moss, and just allowing the environment around you to just take you in. It's this feeling of moving about freely with trust that no matter what happens, you'll be caught, that there's a level of surrender. And that's that other tone of the wild heart. A lot of times there's so many expressions of how the wild heart can be defined. Some people search and seek that wild heart through the goddess, through the feminine divine, through the wild woman, through, there's so many different interpretations of it. But, and that's all what it is anyway, right? It's this interpretation and symbol or archetype of how we connect to these things and how it makes sense to us, and it makes how it rings true to us. But when we can really narrow down and identify what the heart wants, maybe it's material in nature, maybe it's more love and appreciation, but can we really ask ourselves, does it go deeper? Is it maybe an aspect of survival? Money is an amazing example of this. I mean, who doesn't want more money? It's like, it's a survival need. It's something that in our modern society has been a symbol for that. And, when we can move into that, it provides us with everything that we need, it's okay to feel that way. You know what I mean? But this longing of having more money so we can have what we need to feel stable, to feel secure, whatever it is, that goes back, if you trace it back to that survival need once again, and that it's moving back into this core essential piece. Another example of that is love, support. Is it in the wanting, in the nurturing of comfort, that someone is there, someone's stable, loving, supportive, and then it's healthy? As we go back to the very nature of development in the womb, it goes back to all these very primal instincts, our desires. and connecting to that wild heart. This is something that goes way deeper than, that of just the subconscious. It goes way deeper, more into even the superconscious, and connecting once again to how these pieces connect to our roots and how it connects to the physical body and how we're a bridge of, being an energetic being, being a spiritual being, and being a bridge between those two worlds. So, having a healthy relationship with the wilds and the wild heart is an amazing symbolic and also physical experience that is very tangible when you start to connect to it. So, even when you think about it, we're constantly chasing desire. When we connect to the heart, it's always like, okay, what does my heart want? What does my heart need? How do I create self-love? How do I move into compassion? How am I learning? How am I growing? These are the essence and the vibration of the heart. And, we're always, when you really think about it, we're always in the wanting of something. And, it's like we want something, we get the thing, and then it's like we want something else. And it's just this constant cycle. It's this constant moving to the next desire. And that's okay. This is a part of how we are hardwired. I mean, I'm sure every single person here can probably relate to that. And if there's someone that doesn't, I would love to hear who that is, because I almost feel like that's impossible. So, you can prove me wrong here. But when we really look at the heart of desire, and allowing that to be a teacher and a way shower, of allowing it to be a doorway to growth. In my personal opinion, when a lot of these desires and these wantings or longings are met with humility, gratitude, and surrender, then we can really benefit from desire as being a teacher and a way shower, because these things are leading us down a path. They're leading us down a path of our own growth and how we deepen to the connection of maybe what that is. And again, when it all starts to root back into that rooted nature or survival of what it is, then we can really identify that as something that allows us to grow. And, it's when we move into that place of humility, in knowing that there is way more than we see here on this physical plane, that we are connected to all things and we respect and honor the bigger picture, then we can move into this place of gratitude for everything that we have, and having the surrender of trust in oneself, one's belief, and everything that is happening as it should be happening, regardless of having the desire met or not. And when we see these teachings and wisdoms behind what it is that we desire, and we recognize that it is showing us a path, it's like maybe you're being led or feeling guided to buy a house, leading down this path of, okay, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to, bring in more abundance into my life? What if it's something like, this path of wanting to find a partner? This is an opportunity where it really allows the heart to reflect on what do I want? What is right for me? How can a relationship serve as a mirror for me? How can potentially moving into a new home affect the environment around me? So a lot of it is really based off of how we are, moving into that place of discovering how we want to feel in the world, and moving into that place of evolution of being that co-creator in the process. So, it's like when we think about that place of desire and evolution, it's this longing of the soul wanting to grow. It's this longing of the soul wanting to experience and learn and process. It's like we are the only animal on this planet that can actually take critical thinking and manifest things into form to the degree that we can. It's like we actually have the ability to defy nature. But, when we look at that from a perspective of our own personal reflection of that, it's like, what does that mean? What does that happen when we do that? So we're constantly reaching for these places of comfort, of expansion, of growth. And we are the only ones that can do this in this world. So, when we go back into that honor and appreciation and being able to have this, deep connection with how we can live in harmony with the earth and how we can, live in harmony and how we can be in that place of self-discovery and expansion, allowing things to be able to, share with community. A lot of times when you think about the process of how things have been created, and how we've always made things to become more comfortable. If we didn't have certain things, then we wouldn't be able to pursue certain things that our hearts are desiring. So, we're just moving into that place of balancing how we can continue to improve one's life and our community, but also still nurture this aspect of our roots and where we've come from. So, when we actually start moving into, what's kind of interesting about desire is that it's always met with our own filter. And, we have this presence and this preference of what that might look like. So we might move into this role of co-creator and how we are kind of, feeling out what the universe is, trying to magnetically draw to us, to kind of draw in that opportunity, that thing, those people in your life. And it's really connecting to that path of desire and self-growth. So with all that said, I just kind of want to take a few moments just to kind of think about some self-inquiry prompts and maybe some suggestions to kind of connect to that wild heart. So when you look at your day-to-day ongoing processing, it's like when you start to define or look at, am I kind of falling into that trap? Am I falling into that trap of being in a rut? So if you were to kind of define one as being, like I am way into feeling free, and 10 feeling like, oh my God, I am completely trapped. I have nowhere to go and I don't know what to do. If you were to just take a moment and just kind of assess, where do I feel like I'm in that spectrum? And just kind of noticing, asking yourself, what do I do to get out of those funks? You know what I mean? Like, what do I do to inspire myself to create some type of change? My mentor, Tom Brown, would always say, the scout never goes the same way twice. And that was because one didn't want to get into such a developed rut that you would start to lose your awareness, that you would start to, dull your senses because you were so accustomed to just kind of moving in a very robotic way. And so in that process, as we start to dull the senses, it becomes, this process where we are dulling our awareness, we're dulling our experience, and we're disconnecting from that wild nature. We're disconnecting from that wild heart because we're not moving from this place of of, fullness, expression, of, having your senses stimulated in very different ways. So, if you find yourself feeling like, maybe you're 6 or higher, that's just an ongoing indicator point where you just might want to bring into your own self-awareness that if you're falling into that place, on a day-to-day basis, or maybe even in the future, that's the point where you want to start to, catch yourself. If you're starting to move into that 6 area, you know, because once you start to go beyond that, it's harder to get out of the rut, and you fall more into a lower expression. You fall into those depressive moments, and I find it really nice to kind of be able to resource from a list of things that you like to do. So, what brings your energy up? What shakes things a little bit so that you can move about more freely, that you can be more expressive in that wild heart energy? Is it going out, and these are just things that I'm, kind of suggesting here is, is it going out on a wander to be able to just kind of go out, feel where you feel drawn to go, connect to the elements, do a nature sit, talk to the trees around you. There's an exercise that I love doing called tree preaching or tree whispering. And, it's amazing the amount of stress that can just pour off of you by doing that. Going for a long drive, just being able to see different sights, not being, I know for me, like even just driving the same road in and out, it really, there's something about it that I really want to just change that up. So I'll go and I'll just explore neighborhoods that I've never been in before. I'll get in my car and just chase the sunset. Or another amazing rewiring aspect of your day might even be like setting your alarm and waking up with the sunset or the sunrise, and really allowing yourself to get out there and be able to feel the essence of that place. I mean, some of the most powerful times of the day are the sunrise and the sunset, because they hold this certain vibration, this certain tone, where the entire planet that is experiencing that, all the animals in the wild, there's a real concentric ring that happens there during that time. So it's an amazing way to really connect to that. Maybe a part of this list is dancing, playing an instrument. What are things that you would love to try to do that maybe you've never done before? These are all kind of awakening aspects of yourself. They're turning you on in that way. They're tuning you up. Just being able to chant and make verbal sounds within your body so that your vibration of your body is just, being overtaken by the sound of your own voice and the life force that's moving through you. Another way, when you start to really become aware of your senses, and how you stimulate your senses, how you awaken them. These senses, oftentimes you hear about the sixth sense. I believe that there's probably even more so, but the ability to touch, to taste, to feel, the sight and sound. These are a lot of spiritual and energetic connections. It's almost like spiritual antenna. It's like a spiritual antenna that your senses are connected to. And the more we allow the dulling of our senses and our awareness, the more we start to shut down these connections. And some of us have, really profound connections with certain parts of ourselves. The the visual. We can see this when we're trying to learn something, whether we're more audio, if we're more audible, or if we learn through seeing and experience. But this goes for the chakra body as well. I have this whole class coming up that I'm really excited about. It's actually called Embody the Sensuous, and it's manifesting an awareness through the connection of the senses. So it's really going into how you're using the senses in your body to broadcast out presence and the ability to, oftentimes we tend to think like, especially when we're manifesting something, or you hear a lot of times like when things are spiritual and they're out in the ethers, like how do we ground that down? How do we anchor all of this down into the physical experience? And a lot of that is through the senses. So we're just going to be going into this beautiful deep dive of that. I'm really excited about it. It's just been something that, has been really wanting to come through. But, there's other ways to really connect to this process. And oftentimes, when you allow yourself to just connect to yourself, to lead onto yourself, when you think about the wild heart and that place of self-resilience, a lot of times we place so much weight on what is making us happy. We can place a lot of weight on, is our partner making us happy? This is kind of a call out to yourself to lead onto yourself. Get intimate with yourself. If you're in a relationship and, maybe you're lacking intimacy, or maybe, you're just kind of disconnected from your partner, when we really can kind of draw back and see how we're fulfilling ourselves, are we really fulfilling ourselves here and giving us what we need, or are we expecting that from somebody else? And that can go with all parts of life. It's how are you nurturing? How are you fulfilling yourself? And how are you taking responsibility for yourself in that process? And to be able to connect to your heart and to be able to move from a place of that independence where you can still be interdependent in relationship. You can be interdependent with your community. You can be interdependent with all areas of your life. But when it really comes down to the core, are you fulfilling your own basic needs? It's a really deep question. And it's something to just really look at, So I just want a little kind of journal prompt here for yourself. If you have your journal, you might want to take a moment to write, but the question here is, what is the most important pressing thing to you right now? So what is the most important thing? And what is your vision for that thing within the next year? Maybe in the next 3 years? And if you were to take that thing and look through the lens of the wild heart, what actions are necessary? So connecting to that wild essence of that thing that you're longing for. Does it have a root? Does it have that root of survival? Does it have that root of connection? That you can connect to in that wild place. So just take a moment to kind of jot that down. What do you envision for yourself in the next 12 months or 3 years with this topic that you're holding within your heart. And how can you nurture that through that rooted place, through the elementals? How can you wander and question and seek the answers to what is in your heart? Can you bring that question out on a wander with yourself and talk to the trees about this thing? How can you nurture your primal instinct, that place of the wild, in relationship to this? And how can you lead yourself through the process where you can move into your own self-reliance, your own skill set to bring this forward? So I just want you to go back to that when you can. And I'd like for us to just go into a little meditation and journey. So I'd love for you to find a comfortable position where you can sit or even lie down if you like to. Great. And just get nice and comfortable. Allowing any tension to fall away. Taking some nice, deep, cleansing breaths. Allowing a place of calm and peace to just rush over you. As you see this beautiful divine light extending down from the heavens, just washing over you. It's nurturing, loving, protective energy. Taking in some nice deep breaths. You might want to give a nice sigh and just relax any tension. Letting it roll off of you like a beautiful stream of water. And I want you to see yourself just moving down a path. And you start to come to an open field. And you see this beautiful fire in front of you. There's a circle around the fire. It feels warm and inviting, welcoming. You take a seat in front of a fire. And you look above the flames and you see these beautiful flying embers. It feels enchanting. And as you connect to this fire, you start to connect to that wild heart within yourself as it starts to awaken and activate and ignite this flame of passion within yourself. And you feel that stirring within you. And you start to look at the flame again, and you notice that there are three primary flames. The threefold flame of the heart of this fire. And as you connect to those flames, an energy or a word will come forth to describe that essence. And just ask the fire to reveal what those words are. Allowing it to come naturally. It may come as a feeling. You may see the word right in front of you. You may hear the word. And just allow this to unfold and make a note in your mental thoughts of what those words are. And allow yourself to sink deeper into a place of relaxation. And I want you to call forth the spirit of your wild heart, the essence of your heart. And I want you to ask that spirit, how can I tend to these three flames? Allow it to show you insight. Guidance. You may even want to ask anything of your heart that is questionable for you. If you have or want advice from this place of the heart, then now would be a supported time. And taking a moment to ask, how can I honor this in the physical? Taking in a nice deep breath. Starting to come back into your body. Wiggling your toes and fingers. Giving yourself a nice stretch, opening your eyes and coming back into the fullness of your body. Beautiful. And I would love to kind of open up here and maybe share a little bit. If anybody is willing to, would love to hear what we have here. What did people experience? What were your 3 words?
Hi, Donna.
Hi.
I can go.
Thanks for starting.
Yes, I kind of fell asleep there towards the end, but when I was journeying, I got to the fire, and as I was imagining the words, it started turning all gold and sparkly and growing, and it was really, really beautiful. So thank you for that visual. And the words I got were joy, bliss, and patience.
Excellent. Did you happen to get a sense as to how to tend that fire?
Going outside more and reconnecting with nature more, and going to the ocean and to bodies of water, which I'm doing this weekend. So
Nice.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, go.
If there's anyone who would like to share, you can just kind of unmute yourself. Bridget, you look like you want to share. You want to unmute yourself?
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
Good. I got called away on a call, and I came in the middle, and as I was sensing everything that was going on, I tuned in, and then I started to see the energy in the room, and
Mm.
I don't even know where I went. I think I was partially in the future at some point, focusing so much on my own manifestation, about to turn to the next age in a few days. So this is here for me. So I don't know. I don't have much to say other
When's
than
your birthday?
being with you all and connecting like this right now. Thank you.
Bridget, when is your birthday?
What, the 15th?
Nice. I'm the 18th. We're so close.
Oh, that's my mom's birthday. Hi, Pisces.
Happy birthday.
Maybe that's why I called on you, so we could wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Usually I don't even worry about it or even notice, but like because of quarantine, it feels like, oh my God, wait, what is this? And what should I do about it? You saw my post. I've just
Yeah.
been inside for a year. So
Yeah, well, that's exactly the reason to connect to the wild heart too. It's like all of us have been feeling this quarantine and this this sense of being boxed in and
mhm,
not being able to really connect to the freedom that we're really even used to, just being able to hug people. And it's like just seeing some of the youth just recently, and how their body mannerisms, the fear
yeah,
that has been kind of instilled. I was just kind of witnessing, and I was just like, oh goodness, it can be pretty
yeah,
heavy. And now's that time. This is where we can feel the most comfortable, is out in nature. And it's like there's some real gifts in that, to be able to connect to that, because the world can just completely open up, and we can gain so much insight from connecting to the wilds, and connecting that place of the heart. And everything that we can be in gratitude and deep reverence for, being able to go out, sit on a stone, and just really feel the texture of the stone, and how we reflect that essence of earth, that we hold that signature of the rock, the stability, the stableness of that. Being able to go out, an exercise that I love to do is, it's kind of like going to see patterns in trees, and but with the stones in particular. What I would suggest for you to do, anything that you had in your heart, or this is a great thing to do for your birthday as well. But for all of you, those three things, those three flames that you were holding, or those questions that you were asking, go out and just allow yourself to go wander on a landscape. It could be anywhere. It could be your backyard. It can be, in a park, wherever it is. Find a stone that you feel called to. Just pick it up, hold it, put reverence and thanks into that stone, and just start looking at the patterns on it. And is there anything within that pattern that is reflecting back to you? The wisdom that was shared through your journey, or anything that had to do with just even what's going on in life in particular. It's a really, really great exercise to do, to connect. Does anyone else want to share? Irene?
Yes, well, it was raining hard here in Miami Beach. Um, and it's my nap time of the day, so I nodded off. Um, but one of the things that is very resonant with what you just said, and with what also I'm studying in another class that I'm taking, is looking at the smaller things in life.
Mm.
And I mean, I have in my home, I mean, I have right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stones on my table right in front of me. And I have them like all over the place. So, so one of the things that came to me is like really to just get to know them better. Like I remember a time in my life when I would not hug a tree because I was afraid of what people would think about me. I mean, really petrified that people would think I'm weirdo hugging a tree. And I need to hug trees down here because I just miss my trees up north. And I could always feel like they were the only living things that I could wrap my arm around with COVID. And it was so rewarding. So, yeah, I need to do that down here. And I'm a little bit better at not caring too much what people think. Um, but so when you mentioned like the pattern of the trees, like, so I don't have the woods down here. And I went to the beach the other day and there was way too many people down here right now with no masks on. I mean, not even a fifth of the people that I saw had masks on. And and it's windy. It was windy. And I got to the end of this walkway right to the edge of the beach. And just the breeze put sand in my shoes. So I was like, oh, there's sand in my shoes. That's wonderful. But, it was just like, well, now you're at the beach. Now what do you do? Because it was really not much more to do at the beach than just that much. So, but I got to the beach and so I came back. So what you're saying about the little things is making a lot of sense to me right now. It's like really, if I find something different, like the first vision I got when you was a acorn, so an acorn of course grows into a big giant oak tree, but so just to start talking to the little things that I have in around my home, even if it's a stick or part of a coconut or something that I'm not used to, having. So to bring that in and spend some time with those things, because I feel like I don't have the vastness of the big things that I used to have, but I have the immensity of the particulars and the little things.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I need to enhance my relationship, will be on the smaller things and the minute things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that poem verse, it's like find the universe in a grain of sand,
Mm.
you know. Yeah, we are completely surrounded by, the sacred geometries of the universe, they're encoded in every little thing. You see the perfect, patterns of leaves on trees, and it's just really amazing and so completely intelligent and sophisticated when you really connect to that, and when you can really see something in the smallest of detail and have such great reverence for it. It's really amazing when you can really go out into nature with the intention of something and learning from that little acorn or learning from that little stone. And I mean, there are times where it can just blow your top off because it can really just hold a very important message for you that you need in that moment.
Mm.
Thanks for sharing.
Okay.
Cheryl, you unmute yourself there.
Hi, Donna.
Hi,
Thank
great to see you.
Irene. Hi, Irene. Hi, everyone else. Donna, thank you for this. I needed this today.
Oh, you're
And
welcome.
it's probably been a long time coming that I needed this. My 3 words were release, relax, and renew. And, it's just a matter of getting back to the basics, right?
Mm-hmm.
The message for how to tend the flames was, again, another very basic thing about fire: fuel, oxygen, and ignition, right?
Hmm.
but I'm taking that as um, fueling my body. My, I'm sorry, I have such trouble hearing myself with the damn earpieces. I apologize. Feeding my body better, oxygenating, like doing more singing and dancing, like you said, that kind of raises the vibration, the energy, and just finding the spark and setting things, on fire energetically. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Um,
Love that.
yeah. And the message from my heart was let go. Not everything needs to be saved. And that really rings true for me because um, this past year, I felt a lot of the weight um, with everything that's going on. You guys remember I'm a nurse, and it's,
Mhm.
um, yeah. So I felt a lot of um, the weight of the world, literally, with everything. And although I have an outlet spiritually, and my group is still meeting on Zoom. It's not the same because it's very difficult to um, connect to the energies on Zoom completely.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, very, very simple messages, but full of a lot of meaning. And I really appreciate this experience today. And I miss seeing you guys. I know it's been like since 2012 or something like that.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time. Thank you for coming. And thank you for sharing. A lot of wisdom in that. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, Julie, Denise, anybody? Any aha moments or anything, any reflections? Maybe if you didn't have anything going on in the journey, anything else that you
The
wanted
sound of the bells sounded so good. My brain just went
to
blank. And then
Excellent.
I looked and I noticed that it was like coming from you. I didn't know what was going on for a while. I was just like, what is that sound?
Yeah, they're my favorite Koshi bells.
I went outside yesterday and I walked around through the woods. Coincidentally, I couldn't believe my legs were so weak.
Mm,
I had trouble walking,
yeah.
like just climbing and going up hills and like, wow. I was
Yeah.
just so glad the weather
Like,
changed.
oh, I need this.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah,
too cold.
I know. Yeah, once the warm starts to come and, can really but once you just even layer up and you get out there,
Yeah,
one of the I have to say that, spending so much time outdoors and especially living outdoors all season long, winter, spring, summer, fall, it's you go through everything, ice, snow, rain, and it definitely kind of resets this whole thing within yourself, that you really start to acclimate, and your body starts to really adjust to that. But not only that, it's like, when you go out into nature, and a lot of times I'm sure all of us here connect to spirit guides and wisdom and totem animals, and if we see some amazing odd behavior or something like that, if an animal crosses our path, and that may have some significance for us. And I've noticed that the more kind of dedicated you are to showing up for mother nature in all forms, whether it's raining out, if it's snow and freezing out, it's like she comes to show herself even more to you. because it's that relationship, right? Like if you were to just show up for a friend only because, I want to because it's warm out, and not I won't come visit you when it's cold. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. That's been my experience anyway. The more I've gone into the most muckiest of mud and dirt and have completely, saturated myself with, absolute just gook, the more of a profound experience I have. It's just like, it's really this amazing deep surrender that occurs. And the doorway to nature, it's like oftentimes in the spiritual, community and realms and everything, you hear a lot about high vibration and connecting. It's almost like there's almost that disconnect to nature as well, because it's like everything is very ethereal, and people have this perception of how the earth can be very dense, and in a lot of ways it can be, but you can see the universe in a grain of sand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's so much wisdom. You go out and you pick up a stick and you pour your prayers into it, and you look at it as an equal to yourself.
That's
It's
so interesting, because when the quarantine started, I realized, like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity for all of us to go within. And
yeah,
I set all these goals for my own spiritual growth, um, that to some extent I've gone deeper into my stillness and my ability to sit still here in this room. And then there are other goals that I haven't achieved, like magical superpowers, and um, I want to learn telekinesis. I practice,
cool.
but what you're saying, um, because there's this like lack of matter where the physical world or your body completely disconnect to it. So yeah, beautiful
Yeah, it's
to find it outside yourself. You know.
absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely has been one of my greatest teachers, and really connecting to that place of purity. It's like I think that we have a lot of kind of man-made ideals and theories and philosophies, and what's really kind of like hard proof of creation, is just right outside of our window.
Right.
And it truly is that temple, and being able to connect to all of the energetics around what comes from nature. Bringing you to the fire is a teacher in itself. I mean, you can sit with fire there. I've sat in front of fire hundreds of times, and I've learned something from it, and I've taken such deep takeaways from it. I consider fire literally like an ally. Um, and the wisdom that comes from that, just in the process of making fire. It's like the fire by friction literally holds the creation story. you know and the symbol of fire itself is creation. How everything was kind of formed into um this process of life, and it gives us heat, and it provides us warmth, and it fuels it makes our food more digestible for us to eat. And it's if you've ever, I don't know if anyone's ever seen how fire by friction is actually made, but you have this platform of wood, and it's just a fireboard, and then you have a spindle that literally, it could be like almost you know like this is another piece of wood, pencil or whatever, and then you have a handhold on top of it like this, you have a string that wraps around the spindle, which then is tied on a bow, which is the piece that is creating, the process of friction, which then drives the spindle down into the board. And in the process of that making, it's literally like the feminine masculine story of creation. And then in the process of it, through friction, through the pressure of life, and the bow being the spirit that moves through all things, through this entire story of how this is coming into being and birthed into being, then you have this dust that actually falls from the friction of this fire. So it's this accumulated dust that hardens because the pressure is so hot that it creates an ember. And that ember is like this beautiful baby child from the making and friction of the masculine and feminine. And then you blow it up into flame. You nest it into this tinder bundle, which is kind of like that baby's bed. It's cradle, and you literally blow it up to spirit, and it comes into form, into fire. And it's just this really beautiful symbology that at times, like, I don't know how many times I've made fire, but every time I've done it, it's almost brought me to tears, and it just feels like, and I've heard so many people say this that have been in my community, it's almost like doing it the first time every time. It's just mind blowing and amazing, yeah, it's just such an amazing teacher. And in the whole collection and the collective of creating a space for that can be really powerful and healing. And and it brings community together, and it brings story together. There's so many stories that lie out there in the wilds and that lie within your heart. It's like we are these story makers kind of in the making, these storytellers in the making. And there's power behind that. There's power behind those stories. Does anyone want to share? Well, I just wanted to kind of mention again this class that I'm holding called Embody the Sensuous. And I'm really excited about it because, I'll be going kind of deeper into some of the layers of what we've been talking about. But, when you really look at kind of the human potential kind of wrapped in this womb of inherent intelligence, when we move back into this place of nature, the nature of the self, it's like all of us have this, you hear all the time, everyone has the ability to be intuitive, everyone has psychic ability, but it's just shut down or whatever, for whatever reason it is. And it's because we have senses. It's like a lot of spiritual experiences, and I'm talking for myself, this may be different for other people, but a lot of spiritual experiences that I have been because it's been an extension of my senses, and that I was capable of resonating, being on that radio frequency on the same level of whatever it was that I was connecting to energetically, and being able to tap into your senses so you can exercise them and make them stronger so you can be more aware. Being able to embody embody the sensuous, embody that sensual sense, and that rooted self. You know, it's really amazing to go back again into, you know, a lot of the indigenous ways and what they were capable of doing, like going back into that root, the lineage of the Apache scouts. You know, it was like they would know for hundreds of miles the direction that their attackers were coming from. They could see through the eyes of their opponents. They could see through the eyes of, you know, their people. They would
Animals.
know. Yeah, yeah. And, you know, a lot of that was heightened sensibility. It was being very aware of one's senses, very aware of one's surroundings, and very aware of the concentric rings happening on the landscape. When you are spending a lot of time out in nature, you know, it's that basic concept of taking a pebble, plucking it into, you know, the quiet waters and seeing these ripples kind of extend out, and they just infinitely extend out. And, you know, a person walking down a trail, you know, or a dog going down the trail, or an animal or something like that, is constantly sending off concentric rings. We're constantly sending off concentric rings. We don't have to be in nature to be doing that, you know, but this is when I'm just using nature as a reflection to what can happen, you know, in the normal everyday, in, you know, within the indoors or within any modern environment. It's just taking that translation and now applying it to what is in your surroundings now, because this is your environment, this is your nature, this is how we live. You know, it's just, we become way more sensitive out there. I mean, when you think about it, you go out into the woods, you go out on a trail, just say you're by yourself, or maybe one other person or something, but your mannerisms, I guarantee, are so different than how you would walk down the street, down Main Street. You know, you're looking around more. You know, it's like you're a little bit more sensitive of like, okay, what if an animal were to come, you know, randomly out from somewhere? You know what I mean? When you spend more time out in nature, your vision starts to open to more of a wide angle vision. We are one of the only animals now, because we've been conditioned to be that way, to be tunnel visioned. We're always on these gadgets. Every animal out in nature is in wide angle vision. And, you know, it's, a lot of it is because of survival. If they're not in that place of awareness, they, you know, they may be prey. We're not really in that position where we have to worry about that as much. So we dull everything down. But in the process of dulling all that down, we dull our awareness down. We dull our senses down. We become, you know, complacent. We fall very easily into that rut. So it's definitely a really cool training that I'm going to be doing coming up soon. It's just kind of something that has kind of spurred up into me, and I haven't really connected all the dots to it yet, but it's definitely on the horizon. Does anyone else want to share anything? I know some people came in at the very last minute. I was got a little distracted a couple times to let people in the room, but I just wanted to really thank everyone for being here. And it's so amazing to see, you know, familiar faces I haven't seen in a while. Julie, it's really great to see you, and Denise, and just all of you. Cheryl, oh my God. This yeah, Irene, it's always, you're one of my beautiful peeps that I have around me that I'm just, so grateful. So thank you all. And definitely more to come. So keep in touch and thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Donna. Bye, everybody. Love you.